Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to do almost nothing about it. Maybe you'll turn on a lamp. Maybe you'll scroll for an hour before bed. The dark won't change a single one of your plans. But for 99.9% of human history, the sun going down was the most dangerous moment of the entire day. So what did your ancestors actually do once the light disappeared? The answer is stranger, more social, and more important than almost anything they did while the sun was up. Start with the obvious problem. Human eyes are terrible in the dark. You have almost no night vision compared to the animals hunting you. Lions, leopards, hyenas, all of them see better at night than you ever will. So the moment the sun dropped, the entire balance of power on the savannah flipped against you, which means the first and most urgent task every single night was the same one. Get somewhere the dark can't reach you. A cave mouth, a rock overhang, a tight circle of thorn branches dragged into a wall. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, including work by Polly Wiesner at the University of Utah, have found that campsite structure at night is almost never random. People cluster close together, fire in the center, backs to the dark. That instinct is not learned. It's ancient. It's still in you right now every time you feel uneasy walking to your car in an empty parking lot. Once the camp was secured, the second task began, and it might be the single most important habit your species ever developed: keeping the fire alive. Before roughly 40,000 years ago, we're not fully certain how reliably humans could start a fire from nothing. Evidence of controlled fire use goes back at least 1 million years to a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. But controlling an existing fire and creating a new one are two completely different skills. For most of that 1 million years, if your fire went out at night, you might not get it back. So somebody's entire job every single night was just feeding it. Not too much wood, not too little, watching it the way you'd watch something you couldn't survive without. Because you couldn't. Here's what that fire actually gave you. Not just warmth. Warmth was almost secondary. The fire was your light, your protection, your stove, and your reason to still be sitting up instead of sleeping through 12 hours of vulnerable darkness. And once you were sitting up around it with nothing else to do and nowhere else to go, something happened that changed the entire trajectory of the species. You talked. In 2014, Wiesner published a study comparing daytime and nighttime conversations among the Jew/Hwansi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert. During the day, the talk was practical. Land disputes, food, complaints about who did what. But after dark, around the fire, over 80% of conversation shifted into something else entirely. Stories, songs, myths, gossip about people 2 camps away. The firelight itself seemed to change what people were willing to say. Faces soften in that kind of light. Tension drops. People open up in ways they don't in the harsh flatness of daylight. Now, think about what that actually means. For hundreds of thousands of years, night wasn't dead time. It was the only time. The only hours in the entire day when a group of 15 to 30 people sat still together with nothing to do but talk. And what gets passed around a fire isn't small talk. It's survival information, where the water holes dry up in the dry season, which plant looks safe but will kill you, how the herd moves when the rains come late. That knowledge had to move from one brain into another somehow, and there was no better delivery system on Earth than a group of people staring into flames with nowhere else to be. And then there's the part that's even stranger, the stories that weren't practical at all. Every human culture that has ever existed has origin myths. Explanations for the stars, reasons the world is shaped the way it is. Someone had to invent those, and the timing lines up almost too perfectly. You don't sit around inventing a myth about why the sun disappears while the sun is still up, and you're busy hunting. You do it in exactly the moment the question is staring you in the face. In the dark, with the fire the only thing standing between you and it. Some of those stories survived an almost impossible amount of time. Australian Aboriginal oral traditions describe coastline changes from rising sea levels that geologists have now dated to roughly 7,000 years ago. 7,000 years of a story surviving purely because people kept sitting down at night and telling it to each other, generation after generation, word for word, close enough that it matched the rocks. So the night wasn't just where danger lived, it was where culture was built. But it wasn't only talking. Night was also when a huge amount of physical work got done, because unlike daylight hours spent hunting or gathering, firelight hours were often the only stretch of the day with nothing scheduled. Archaeologists have found concentrations of tiny stone flakes, the debris left over from tool making, clustered in exactly the spots inside caves where firelight would have reached best. Someone sat there for hours, night after night, shaping the tools the group would use the next day. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers uncovered a 100,000-year-old workshop for processing ochre, the reddish pigment used for symbolic decoration. Abalone shells used as mixing containers, bone tools for stirring. That is not the kind of task you rush through between hunts. That is the kind of task you do slowly, carefully, by firelight, when there is genuinely nothing else pulling at you. Bone needles start appearing in the archaeological record around 61,000 years ago. Delicate, precise. Tiny drilled eyes you cannot make while you're distracted or in a hurry. You make something like that when you're sitting still with hours to spare. Night gave people exactly that. Now, here's the twist most people never expect. The deepest, strangest use of that nighttime stillness wasn't survival at all. It was art. The cave paintings at Chauvet in southern France, roughly 36,000 years old, weren't drawn near the entrance where the light and warmth naturally were. They're deep inside, hundreds of meters through narrow passages, in total blackness except for whatever animal fat lamp the artist carried in with them. Nobody stumbles into that kind of effort by accident. You don't crawl into a pitch-black chamber to paint a horse muscle by muscle from memory when the hunting was good and the day was easy. You do that when the outside world has nothing left to offer you that night. And the only direction left to go is deeper into the dark, carrying fire, making something. And this is where the modern mirror snaps into focus. Every single one of those needs is still running inside you right now, just aimed at different targets. You still cluster together at night, just on a couch instead of around a flame. You still crave a story before you let yourself sleep, which is most of what a Netflix queue actually is. You still feel that specific low hum of unease when you're outside after dark in an unfamiliar place, even though nothing in your actual modern life is likely to eat you. That feeling isn't irrational. It's a memory. It's 1,000,000 years old. The light bulb didn't erase any of this. It just muted it. You still instinctively want light, company, and a story before the day fully ends. Because for almost the entire history of your species, that combination was the difference between surviving until morning and not. Every fire circle your ancestors ever sat in is the reason you feel calmer with a lamp on. Every myth told into the dark is the reason you still crave narrative before sleep. Every needle shaped by firelight, every painting carried into a black cave, all of it happened in the exact hours you now spend half asleep in front of a screen, not even noticing that the entire architecture of nighttime human behavior is still quietly running underneath you. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to do almost nothing about it. But somewhere underneath that lamp switch and that queued up show, you're still doing exactly what your ancestors did the moment the light disappeared. You're still gathering the people you trust close, telling a story, and waiting out the dark.